Chairperson Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Ezell,
Here.
Commissioner Lance,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrill,
Here.
Commissioner Souter.
Okay. Before we get started, do we have any communication from the public outside of this case? Nothing at this time. Okay, if we could go ahead and get started with 3602 Phelps Street. This is an emergency show cause hearing regarding demolition of a severely fire damaged structure. Anybody who's involved could come up and give your name and information, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Thomas Sally. This is my wife, Eliani Sally. She's actually the owner on the deed of this property, and I'm the business manager. And she's standing next to me because I am hard of hearing. Not that I don't want to listen, but I physically can't hear sometimes. So she'll interpret if I don't understand what you ask me. I have a statement I would like to read to you, if I may. It's about 7 minutes in length. Is that okay? Okay. My wife and I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to discuss the situation with our house located at 3602 Phelps Street. Our understanding is that on May the 9th, the renter began to cook his evening meal for his son and himself. While in the process, he stepped away from the kitchen and went to another room, only to be called by his son, who told him that the kitchen was on fire. He and his son escaped with clothes on their backs. The house caught on fire and burned most of the roof and ceiling away. The next morning, as my wife, my son, and myself stepped off the concourse gateway at Delta Airlines after arriving in Sao Paulo, Brazil, my cell phone rang. After 3 separate calls from a number I did not recognize, I decided to answer the unknown call on my phone. It was Fire Chief Duncan, asking me to confirm that I was Tom Sally. After the affirmative, he told me our house had caught fire the previous day. The renter lost his cell phone in the fire, did not know my cell phone number, but the chief found me as the owner through a government website as the owner of the house and found me on Facebook to get my telephone number and call me. So good work, investigating person. We were in Brazil to take care of estate problems relating to my wife's mother who had passed away and would be there for 20 days. My wife and her mother were born in Brazil. My wife is now an American citizen. We were not on vacation and could not immediately return to the States. Once the fire chief notified me that a fire had occurred, I contacted my insurance agent, who arranged for the access of the interior of the house to be secured to keep children and others out of the house and to maintain safety and security of the premises. I communicated those actions to the fire chief to let him know that the house was secure. I did not receive any communication from anyone else at that time, nor during any of the time that we were in Brazil. But once we returned to the States, I asked the chief if I was supposed to communicate with anyone else besides himself. The chief gave me Ms. Holder's email. I sent an email to Ms. Holder on June the 18th to let her know our intentions, and she responded by sending me a copy of the board decision of June the 12th. In the meantime, I had grass mowed around the house and the debris picked up to indicate to passersby that something was happening to the house. The house was secure and not a danger to the community or the neighborhood. Yes, it was burned, but no, it was not a trashy or a dangerous environment. I understand the ordinance written in your books regarding a house that has been burned beyond 50% needing to be demolished. It was probably written at a time when someone had their house burned beyond 50%, being so discouraged that they just walked away and left. Then what was the government left to do? Violate private land ownership and clean the mess up? And who would pay for such a task? An ordinance was clearly needed for such events. Since East Ridge was founded in 1812, is that right? 1921, charter. Therefore, if you have an ordinance clearing the way for such an action and an ordinance that puts the cost onto the taxation of the property, At least you'd be able, as a government, to clean up the mess, keep the community safe, and then the government would be reimbursed for the next owner who buys the property through the tax bill. Such an ordinance from East Ridge is not required for a piece of property owned by the Sally family. It has our name on it, and we wish to maintain a good family name. I don't mean that in a prideful manner. I mean it as a manner of being responsible. Without government interaction, we would and will take care of the property. There was a period of time from the date of the fire on May the 9th until my email to Ms. Holder on June the 18th that there was no contact between us and the city except for my conversations with the fire chief. We were in another country most of the time, and when we returned, we were on a mission trip with 42 teenagers giving concerts to inmates in detention centers in Florida for a week. Until I sent the email to Ms. Holder on the 18th of June to relay our intentions to rebuild this house, the city had not contacted us. But with her responding email on June 18th, I became acquainted with the Housing Commission order dated June 12. On June 20th, I sat down with Mr. Michael Howell, Chief Building Official, Ms. Tori Holder, Residential Building Inspector, and I explained somewhat to them, and now more fully to this commission, that the foundation of the house is sound. The roof over the garage is sound. The front porch is sound. The HVAC unit outside the house is sound. All of the exterior walls of the house are sound and covered with cedar wood shingles, which would easily burn if ignited, but none of them are even singed, except for just a couple on the edge of the roof of the front porch. Here's a picture. I'm sure you've all seen them. If you're not going to pass this around, it shows 3 views of the house, showing that all the exterior walls are intact and not bothered. This house is in much better shape than just to be demolished and built again from scratch. In fact, we have 2 real estate investment and construction companies who believe there is $75,000 worth of value from one of them, $76,000 in value from the other, who want to take the ownership of the house as is and to rebuild. Prior to the fire, we had several real estate buyers who wanted to purchase the house for more than $250,000, which lends value to why these folks want to buy it from us. The Sally family has ownership interest in 2 more houses on Phelps Street, 3632 and 3640. One house was owned by Eliani before she married me, and the other owned by her parents. I live by myself at 3602 Phelps Street at the top of the hill. We have a vested interest in the neighborhood being livable and inviting to people who come through the neighborhood. In review of Statute 13307, unfit structures declared public nuisances, repair, or demolition, it is stated within the terms of 13304 on 3rd line that the structure shall be repaired or demolished. And on the 5th line it is stated, criteria shall be used by the housing inspector and the housing commission in ordering repair or demolition. Seems to give rise to me that there's an option for the commission to either have the unit repaired or demolished. In the numbered paragraph number 1, if the dwelling or rooming house unfit for human habitation or dangerous building can reasonably be repaired so that it will no longer exist in violation of the terms of this chapter or other chapters of this code, it shall be ordered repaired. Furthermore, numbered paragraph number 2 states where a dwelling or a building or rooming house cannot be repaired so that it will no longer exist in violation of the terms of this chapter, seems to give rise to ask the question whether or not this house can be repaired. We answer that question with the statement there are 2 companies willing to put forth serious investment to have this house rebuilt. They believe the house has remedial qualities and value to build upon. It is obvious to all concerned that our house exhibits characteristics that it is unfit for human habitation. As it now stands, it has no roof. But that is not where we wish to leave it. We wish to repair and rebuild this house. We hope the information that you've now been given of the true structure and nature of the house will give you the information that you need as a commission and our buyers to help us rebuild this home. I've been talking with Brent Campbell, who I'll introduce to you in a moment. It will take about 2 weeks to have a roof on this house and have it dried in. That's having all of the inside of the house cleaned out and having the roof in place. For the sake of the community and the neighborhood and our immediate neighbors, our request standing before this board today is to ask you to allow these two companies, or one of them, to have a building permit and begin repair and reconstruction of this house, rather than condemning the house to be torn down and leaving an empty corner lot in the center of this community. A new, beautiful house sitting on this prominent corner would be much better than an empty, scraped-off lot. I want to thank you for this hearing, and I want to ask you to please consider to allow us to rebuild without demolition. Sincerely, Tom and Eliani Sally.
Thank you, Tom.
Have any questions?
What I understand, people offered to buy it for $76,000. Is that what I'm hearing?
As it stands right now, I have two offers for purchase, one for $75,000, one for $76,000. The company that offered me a $76,000, we were going to close on the house yesterday. But I called them and I told them that we had an emergency hearing. I had a contract with them of a non-recourse contract where if I wanted to legally, I could have forced them to purchase the house yesterday morning. I called them. I'm not that type of a person. I don't want them to lose anything. I want it to be a win-win situation. So I called their chief negotiator and I told him that today we would be talking about either being allowed to rebuild this house or having it demolished. But we already have a signed contract for $76,000, which I gave to you and Mr. Howell, Mr. Howell, right. So I gave that to them the other day to show that we already had an offer on the table. This gentleman sitting here, Mr. Campbell, represents the company that wants to buy the house. And he's here today hoping that the commission will give us permission to rebuild the house and that you'll grant him the ability to get a permit to do that.
So has any estimates been taken whatsoever as far as what it costs to rebuild it?
I'm sorry, well, the house is a pretty old house. I suppose if we were going to, let's just say my wife and I decided, okay, we're going to rebuild it. We'd have two options. We could put it back into a basic common state as rental property, or we could take the time and effort to actually upgrade the house and do new windows and different appliances over and above what used to be there. So your range of rebuild is vast, depending on what you want to do with it. These gentlemen have already offered to pay $76,000 to take ownership of the house and then take the steps to dry it in and then rebuild whatever's necessary on the inside. I don't know what their projections are for cost to do that.
Tori, is this zoned as a rental property?
It's zoned R1. It doesn't have to be zoned as a
Okay.
rental property.
Okay. I was curious.
Also, I wanted to just read this to you guys as well. So Michael did meet with us, like Mr. Sally just said, and he gave me a letter to read to you guys. He went out today, and we've all kind of been in agreement, so I'll just go from here. He said, to the members of the Housing Board, after a thorough inspection of the structure located at 3602 Phelps, the following items were observed. The roofing system, the roof structure including the ridge boards, rafters, purlins, collar ties, ceiling joists, sheathing, and asphalt shingles are damaged. The entire roof system has to be replaced. The walls and load-bearing elements, some of the exterior and interior walls are damaged at the top plates with some vertical burning to the studs. Both interior and exterior load-bearing walls show similar damage. Replace damaged studs and top plates as needed. For the flooring system, it did not suffer any fire damage and the floor joists are intact. Subflooring damage will just have to be replaced as needed. And then for your foundation walls show no signs of fire or heat damage as the fire was contained in the attic area. There are no visible signs of settling, cracks, or other potential issues, and no indication of structural instability. And then Mr. Howell said, the property owner has provided the city with an updated appraisal report, which is higher than what Hamilton County had it listed for. And he also said that based on his assessment, he believes that the structure can be salvaged, and he respectfully requests that you all reconsider the decision to demolish the single-family dwelling at 3602.
So what was the appraisal?
The appraisal was $145,000 by Wells Blake and Company in the year 2000. So 4 years ago, and as all of us sitting here know, the market has changed dramatically in 4 years. But that was an official appraisal at that time, 145.
2 years ago?
2020. It was in 2020.
Okay.
So that's
Oh,
right.
do you, what year did I say?
2020.
Oh, 2020, I'm
Said
sorry.
2000.
I say 2000, I'm sorry.
But I have that report, and it's from 2020.
And we don't know the estimate of what it's gonna cost to get it completely up to code.
I'd say around 100.
Mr. Graham?
That's,
He already answered.
Okay.
that's,
No, I didn't.
so you're estimating about $100,000 to get it to code, because it'll have to be completely up to current code. And unfortunately, the code reads that it can't exceed the 50% mark. I think one of the biggest things when it came in front of us 10 days ago was the lack of any movement there or communication, which now it makes complete sense because you guys were out of the country.
Right. Had we been in the country, would have.
Right, you would have been here, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. What other questions do we have? I agree.
To make a good decision, not based on what you just said, that wouldn't be a good decision. How about we wait till, to come back for the July meeting, and you have the estimates of what it will cost. You go through and estimate exactly what it would cost, because when you get into the money you're talking about, you're getting into, what, 60-70% of the value of the house.
Now, I guess the question here, I'm a real estate agent too, and I ran numbers on all this prior to doing comps and recent sales in the neighborhood. Once completely renovated, I'd be in that 339 list range.
But we're going off of the current value of the structure, not what it can be and the end result. And this is not necessarily going in putting granite countertops back in. This is just to get it up to code. Does that make sense? We're not looking at, you know,
So when you're talking about putting $100,000 in to make a $300-something-thousand house, that's really not what we're looking at here.
Well,
To make it right according to codes and to how it is, it can't exceed the 50% of the value of the home. So that's why I was asking, can you go back and estimate what it would take to fix it, brought up to codes? And if it is less, then I don't care what you do to it then. But as long as it's less, to do that, then you would probably be allowed to go ahead and buy and repair it how you choose. But I need some kind of money that says you're not gonna, it's not gonna take $100,000 to get a $140,000 house up to code. Does that make sense to you?
we're not looking at, you know,
I don't wanna see you tear it down, but I can't sit here and tell you can fix something that is that kind of price versus a $140,000 house without taking it down to the foundation and going back up.
well, the fact that the house was valued at $145,000 in the year 2020 with old appliances and all the other things that were associated with a house that was over 50 years old. If you're going to rebuild a house with current prices on lumber, it would far exceed $145,000 at that point in time. If we were to take 3 bedrooms and a bathroom and a large living room, large kitchen, all the appliances you're supposed to have, and if you try to build it now, you could not do that for $200,000, I don't believe. Maybe you could. I
have a
if
question.
I can't open my telephone and reach into Dropbox and pull out the document that my insurance company sent me, that it's a detailed line-by-line quotation of $192,000 to build the house from scratch.
Has your insurance agent came out and given you an estimate on how much it would cost you to
Yes,
repair everything?
that's what they did. They
Okay.
sent their investigator to investigate the story of why it was burned down, and then they sent their estimator out to walk through the house, and they have a line-by-line breakdown of what it would take to rebuild the house. And it's, my memory evidently is not great, but I think it was $192,000. But in that, they had $15,000 worth of profit built into it, and they had another $15,000 of an estimator cost in that. That would have taken another $30,000 off of the actual cost to build it, down to about $160,000.
Now, that's a cost to completely rebuild it, correct? Not
Yes.
just repair it.
No, that's to have it completely rebuilt for the specifications of the city, electric, plumbing, and everything else. And new HVA systems, which is about, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000, but the one we have was working at the time of the fire, and it wasn't damaged by the fire. So if I can pull that out on my phone, I don't know if I can send you an email and you can print it. Can we do that?
not
Have we got
help.
time to do that rather than wait for another hearing?
That would not help as far as the total number he's referring to is more than the value of the home, period.
Hey, Mr. when they do appraisals, the tax assessment, they just go off of the property and what it looks like from the outside.
Now, I will say what I was going off was the hardwood floors and granite countertops, appliances, all in. That's, what we're looking at on renovation.
We need a professional estimation, just take his opinion.
Electrically, you're probably looking at,
Sounds
with the
total
colors,
loss.
getting set up, 14. Plumbing's probably fine there, for the most part, since all the crawl space was fine. You're just gonna be replacing the fixtures. Mechanical, like you said, if needed, it's hard to guess without it hooked up, $5,000-6,000. That's just putting a unit on there, if the ductwork's fine. Framing, worst case, 20. That's, the main fix is gonna be putting it to dry. And after that, it's just sheet rock and everything, and, new windows, that's what I'm looking at, my price, is new windows, new doors, siding, things that aren't, you may not be factoring in.
No, because if he was gonna fix it, it's like he said, all the siding was good.
Good, right?
You
But
wouldn't
there
be
was
repairing all
certain
of that.
sides that, it may not need it, but for my purposes, we would wanna do it just to, bring it up, update the house.
So we're looking to get that piece that is just a code. Up, over and above that, when you're doing the finishes, higher end finishes and things that are more renovation.
Different, so electrical,
Yeah.
plumbing, HVAC.
So for $70,000, can you bring it back to code? That's
I'm
kind of
sorry?
what we're looking at. For $70,000, can you bring it
Yeah,
back
and
to
then
code?
everything else be just like, flooring.
How fancy you wanna get
That's
your-
where I'm adding up, door casings and all that stuff, yeah. The 100 was just all turnkey, windows, siding, everything.
And Mike felt like it was not a danger at all structurally. That was our key, our last meeting, is there was such apprehension on if it was even solid enough to stand because of the damage.
He went out this afternoon
So
and did a whole
that was
walk.
our big concern,
He says it's fine.
was the integrity. No, it's okay.
Okay,
I understand.
so I make a motion that since you can repair it for 70,000 or less, bring it up to code, that we allow them to pull permits and go ahead and fix the house.
Second.
Before y'all finish that motion, I just want to add, just for the building permit aspect of things, I'm going to have him go ahead and put the entire scope, that includes the windows and stuff. I don't want him to have to pull separate permits for everything. So if that permit does come in valued a little bit higher, that's why. But it just saves him from having to pull excessive amount of permits when we're going to have to do the inspections for the exact same thing. So to keep it from having so many.
Yeah, I wanna build a correct house, like, that's my goal, get in there, do it right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Vice Chairperson Ezell. Commissioner Lance,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrill,
Yes.
Chairperson Davis.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Y'all are dismissed. Y'all are good.
Will I get a statement or?
Yes, from
written?
Tori.
So
That-
what we'll do,
that-
we'll have an order drawn up, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. City Attorney, Mr. Sally,
Yes, sir.
I'll draft up an order. This order will be ready in about 10 minutes if you want to wait. Y'all are
yes, sir.
welcome. What this provides is that you are permitted to pull the permit. The permit can be pulled. You'll have, Ms. Holder will be able to assist you in connection with what the requirements are. Obviously, the builder knows or should know, the requirements of it, but you'll have 6 months there to get this commenced, and then within that time, if it has been commenced, then you'll have the additional 6 months to complete it. So if that's what we're looking at and you can get that, you're able to proceed.
Thank you.
I could express to you tremendous personal frustrations with a number of areas of our life lately as we've tried to minister to other people and we've put our hands around their problems to help them. And today you've put your hands around our problem and helped us, and I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Best of luck.
I'll have this ready shortly.
Brent Campbell. Yeah, and the permit will be under BAC Chattanooga Group. That's my LLC. BAC Chattanooga Group. And this will be my first East Ridge. I know I've done stuff in Chattanooga. Is there same processes behind? Okay,
With all the same codes.
okay, good deal.
The only thing that's going to be a little bit different is maybe your municipal, but
Okay,
other than that,
okay. Okay.
yeah. Because I'll be
Well,
out there doing the inspections.
I've already had, contractors go over there, look at it. We're ready to go, so.
Let me, so you already have an OpenGov account with Chattanooga?
Yes, I do, I think. So I do these are my own, well, I have my contractor's
Yeah,
license,
yeah.
but, bear with me on the,
Melissa. Grab my card and also grab one of the OpenGov sheets. All I care about is right here.
okay.
Yep. Now, whoever does, I don't know if you're licensed or not, or if you've got people subs.
Motion to adjourn?
Whoever you have